Alrighty, we're back for another video lecture on the theory of evolution by natural selection. Our last one, we went over evidence of evolution. And this time we're going to go over mechanisms or forces of evolution. These are the forces that cause species to change over time. All right, so last time we learned about evidence of evolution. Well, what causes evolution to occur? What causes the species to change over time? Or what causes the alleles in a gene pool to change over time? And there's four: genetic mutation, gene flow. I'm going to go over all these. Something called genetic drift, and one we should know by now: natural selection, the most important. All right, so I'm going to go over all four of these mechanisms or forces that cause evolution to occur. All right, so before I get into the actual forces or mechanisms that cause evolution to occur for species to change over time, there's something called the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium by two scientists. Hardy, I forget, it's like H.G. Hardy and Wilhelm Weinberg, I think it is. Well, they came up with what's called Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, which states that allele frequencies, or the percentages of alleles in a gene pool of a population, will not change. They'll stay constant. So you can see, like here. So right here, boom, they're staying constant. It's not going up, it's not going down. Not going up, not going down. This would be Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. So the allele frequencies, so say like the white fur allele in rabbits and a brown fur allele in rabbits. In Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, the white and the brown fur are going to stay constant. They're not going to go up or down. They're going to stay the same. This doesn't happen in nature because there are forces that causes them to change, and it's those forces that cause evolution to occur, like natural selection. Natural selection. So if it's by the North Pole and there's snow, and everything's white because of the snow, that might cause the allele for white fur to go up and the allele for brown fur to go down. So they will not be equilibrium because they will not stay the same. White fur will go up, becoming more common. Brown fur will go down, becoming less common, because it's easier to see a brown fur rabbit in the snow than it is a white fur rabbit. Genetic drift, which we haven't learned yet, or you could have, but I haven't talked about it yet today. Gene flow, mutation, and also non-random mating, which is called sexual selection. So Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium states that allele frequencies will stay constant. They'll stay the same unless something causes them to change, like natural selection, genetic drift, and so on. All right, so this is not super important, but just something to keep in mind. Honors, you will probably need to know this because there is some math that we'll be doing on the next Edpuzzle lecture. All right, first a little review. What is evolution? Remember, well, if you don't know this by now, this is like the third Edpuzzle. We've done several activities. You don't know what evolution is by now. That's kind of a bad sign. But anyways, evolution is how species change over time. So over millions, like 30 to 100 million years, whales started out as a terrestrial land mammal with legs. And after tens of millions of years, through evolution, it evolved into today's modern whales. Another definition of evolution is any change in the frequency or percentage of alleles in a gene pool. So you can see right here, the initial population, there's 80% green genes. Maybe it's green skin for frogs, or I don't know. And then there's 20% brown genes. This is initial. But after 1 year, look, it changed. Now there's only 60% green genes and there's 40% brown genes. Maybe these frogs live in an area where the plants are all brown, so it's harder to see them. So the brown allele went from 20 to 40. The brown allele is getting more common, where the green allele is going down, went from 80% to 60%. That's evolution because it's a change in the alleles in the gene pool, the green genes and the brown genes. And evolution is what leads to all the diversity of life on Earth, all the different plants, all the different animals, birds, fish, monkeys, snakes, all that. All the diversity of life on Earth is due to evolution. All right, so the first force or mechanism of evolution, the thing that causes evolution to happen, is natural selection. You should have heard of this term by now. If you have not, that should sound a little alarm bell in your head, like, wow, I haven't done any Edpuzzle, and I've done no activities so far. That's why you've never heard of natural selection. Anyways, it's animals and plants. Don't forget, plants also evolve. Plants and animals with helpful traits, they will survive longer, and since they live, they have more offspring, more babies. They're able to pass their traits on to the next generation. Remember, this is due to adaptations. This is any trait or feature that helps an animal, once again, or plant, survive, kind of like a giraffe's long neck. So this guy's got a long neck. This guy's got a short neck. So this guy is able to reach up way into the tree and eat leaves, so he gets plenty of food. So he lives and has baby giraffes and passes on that long neck trait to his babies. The short neck guy ends up like this. He ends up not getting enough food. He dies of starvation. He does not have babies, so that allele or that trait of having a short neck gets lost because it doesn't get passed on because the giraffe dies. On the bottom here, you see this bird flying around. The ground is black. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a volcano erupted and lava covered it and now it's black. Well, you can see the brown mice are easy to see. The black mice are hard to see. So through natural selection, the birds will start eating more of the brown ones because they're easier to find. And over time, more mice will become, the black fur allele will become more common, and the brown fur allele and the brown trait will become less and less common through natural selection because it's better to be a black mouse in that environment. Remember fitness. That's how well an animal survives and reproduces. Remember, it's still plants as well. So how well is an animal or plant adapted to that environment to allow it to survive and have babies? So does it have high fitness? Does it have low fitness? And over time, the good traits, traits that are an advantage, traits that are an adaptation will become more common. Traits like the brown fur in this right here will become less common. And another example, faster cheetahs can catch more food and pass on their speed to their cubs, where the slower cheetahs, they have a harder time getting food. So they end up dying of starvation. They don't have baby cheetahs and they don't pass on that trait to the next generation. All right, so the first force of evolution or mechanism was natural selection. Organisms, plants, and animals that are more well adapted to an environment have a better chance to survive and reproduce and pass on those traits to the next generation. The next one's called genetic drift. So this is also going to cause species, their traits, and their alleles to change in a population over time. But this is not due to fitness or adaptations. This is change of traits or alleles in the gene pool due to random chance events, basically being lucky or unlucky. So an example would be in a volcanic eruption, a forest fire, etc., some sort of natural disaster. So we have it right here. We have a population of seals. We have some gray seals. We got some white seals. We got some brown seals. All right, and this volcano erupts. Now, the volcano eruption wipes out most of the seal population. It kills most of the seals. Only a few of them are left. And look what's left. We got two brown ones and one gray one. So there used to be some white ones. They're gone. There used to be three gray ones. Now there's only one gray one. And as they reproduce again, you can see now the new population is mostly brown, mostly seals with brown skin. And then there's a couple with gray. So it changed. So it used to be equal amount of gray and brown, and there was also some white. But after the eruption, most of them were killed, but just by random chance. More brown ones survived and gray ones survived than white ones. So the new population is mostly all brown and a few gray. So this has nothing to do with fitness. Brown was not any better than gray or white. The brown seals just got lucky. They happened to not get, swallowed up by the lava, or maybe they didn't get hit by flying debris. They got lucky and they lived. But that changed the final population of seals, as now they're all brown and gray and there's no more white. So that's an example of genetic drift. It's a change in the traits of a population due to some random chance event. In this case, it was a volcanic eruption. And here's another one. This one's called the fountain. So this one right here is called the bottleneck effect. When a large part of the population gets wiped out, leaving only a few members. So that's called the bottleneck effect. The other one's called the founder effect, and that one's right here. I don't think you're going to need to know the difference. Honors, maybe. So you have a population of lizards. You have yellow ones, you have orange ones, and you have green ones. And this little log breaks free from this island. Oh, and only a yellow and a green one gets on this log, and it floats to this island over here. And they start a new population of lizards. Well, now look, there's no more orange ones because only a yellow one and a green one got on. So the new population of lizards, now there's no more orange ones. Now it's just green and yellow. So the traits in this population did change. Now more of them are green, less of them are yellow, and none of them in this new population are orange. So this is another change in the traits of a population, but this time due to a small part of the population moving to a new place and starting a new population, but it's different from the original population. So these are two examples of genetic drift. Changes in the frequency of the traits or the alleles due to a random chance event. So this has nothing to do with fitness. This is just being lucky or unlucky. All right, so we're on to our third force or mechanism of evolution. Remember, the first one was natural selection. Organisms which are more well adapted to an area have a better chance to survive and reproduce and pass their traits on to the next generation. Genetic drift, that's change in the traits or alleles in a population due to random chance events, like maybe a forest fire or a volcanic eruption where it wipes out a large part of the population, but it has nothing to do with fitness. Some animals get lucky, some don't. So some live, some die, but it has nothing to do with fitness. It's just if they're lucky or not. The next one is gene flow. This is the easiest to understand. All gene flow is when animals move to new areas. They move and they move into a different population. So right here, you got two populations. You got a population of brown beetles, you got a population of green beetles. Well, one of these beetles decided to migrate, to immigrate. He immigrated into this population. So now this new population, there's green beetles, but now there's also brown beetles. So the movement of organisms from one population and move to a different population, that can change the frequency of alleles in the new population. It also can change the frequency of alleles in the original population. So when an organism moves into a population, that's called immigration. They moved in. That's adding new traits or alleles to the population. Now, when a beetle or organism moves away from a population, that's called emigration. And that's where alleles or traits can be removed as organisms or members move away from the population. So, example, wolves from one pack move to another area and breed with another pack of wolves. So, gene flow, all it is immigration, emigration. It's migration. It's organisms moving from one population and moving into another population. All right, so that's gene flow. All right, and the last force or mechanism that causes evolution to occur. So we had natural selection, we had genetic drift, and we had, what was the last one? Oh, gene flow, migration. Now we have random mutations. A mutation is a random change in the DNA of an organism. So this happens during DNA replication. When DNA is making a copy of itself, it makes a mistake. So like right here, let's see where's the mutation. All right, so there was supposed to be a T right here. Whoops, it forgot to put the T. It was supposed to be GTC, and it forgot to put the T. That's a mutation because this strand right here is different from the original strand, so a mutation has occurred. Some mutations can benefit an organism, so it gives them a new trait. So the mutation causes that animal or plant to have a new trait. Maybe it's color changes, and maybe that change of color is beneficial. That would be an adaptation. Some are harmful. Maybe it'll be lethal. Maybe it'll kill the plant or animal. Maybe it'll give it a color that's not good. And most mutations do nothing at all. The plant or animal stays exactly the same. So if a mutation is helpful, it will become more common in the population or the gene pool. So some examples, some bacteria, their DNA mutate to make them resistant to antibiotics. This little thing right here, only germ cells, those are the sex cells, the gametes. Those are the only ones, if there's a mutation in the germ cells or the gametes, those are the only ones that get passed on to the next generation. Because if I have a mutation in one of my, like, say, my skin cells, you don't give your skin cells to your babies. You give your gametes, your reproductive, the sperm and the egg. And most importantly is the last one right here. Mutations are the original source of all genetic variation of life on Earth. So the reason why there's so many different species of plants and animals, it all started with random mutation in the DNA of different organisms. All right, so that's the fourth and final mechanism or force of evolution, mutations of DNA. All right, so now just a summary of what we went over, the four forces or mechanisms that cause evolution to occur. Remember, the first one was natural selection. Organisms with the highest fitness pass on traits to the next generation. So in this case, the dark moth against the dark tree, the dark moth will have a higher fitness. The lighter colored moth will have a lower fitness because it's much easier to see them. So the dark colored moths will become more common. The lighter colored moths will become more rare. They're going to become less and less common. Genetic drift, remember, change in the traits or frequency in a population of alleles due to random events. So like this guy right here, he's just walking along. We're going to pretend like it's not green grass, so he couldn't see the green ones. So we could easily see these beetles. So there's this population of beetles. Some guy comes walking along and whoops, he steps on two of them, but he stepped on two of the green ones. So now the new population, now they started with with equal number of green and brown, but due to this random chance event, now there's actually more brown than green. That's genetic drift. Gene flow, that's just migration. So you see this, some like purple or red colored beetles, and there's some brown ones over here. One of these maroon or purple ones migrated, immigrated into this population, and now it changed. It changed the traits of this new population because now they're not all brown. Now we have like a purple one. It also changed the gene pool because now we have purple alleles in this gene pool. And the last one was random mutations in the DNA, which is the original source of new alleles and traits. So you can see right here, DNA was supposed to put a T or thymine, and whoops-a-daisy, it put a C cytosine. So just that little change right there could change the traits of this organism. That little mutation in the DNA may make this plant or animal look different. All right, so this was mechanisms or forces of evolution, and it's quiz time. So hopefully you have some good notes, and I'll see you next time.